Well, good morning. From the campus of Central Washington University, this is our first University Advancement Virtual Town Hall. I'm Robert Lowry, and I'm very glad to have you joining us today as I have the pleasure of posing some questions that you have asked our donors, friends, and alumni of Central Washington University to the two guests I have on set with me today. To my right, the president of Central Washington University, Dr. James L. Gaudino. And to my left, Rick Paradis. He's the Associate Vice President for University Advancement. Thank you very much for joining us for this really exciting event today.
It is exciting. Thank you, Rob, for acting as our host and narrating this all.
Happy to do it. Now, again, we have a number of questions that you have posed that we're going to get to today that really run the gamut of what's happening at Central Washington University. We'll get to those in just a couple of minutes. But Dr. Gaudino, I did want to ask you, we are doing this program today on what is the eve of the 2019-2020 school year.
That is right.
And I know the beginning of the school year is really an exciting time for you as the president. Why is that so?
Well, you know, there's an easy and obvious answer is the students come back. But what does that mean? I mean, we are here to educate students. And during the summer, I mean, you know, summer school lasts for a while, but you know, increasingly summer school is an online activity for our students. So the energy of the campus is gone. It's you, me, and you know, and Rick trying to make everything exciting. So it's just impossible to do. And in just a couple of days, we're going to have about 2,400 freshmen come, and then it's just going to perk. And of course, and all their moms and dads will be here, unloading them into the res halls, and then the upperclassmen will come back, and then the faculty are back, and then we are just back in business. And that literally is saying that's what we're here for. So you know, there's an old, it's a cliche, it's a joke really, that there are two wonderful times on a college campus: when the students arrive and when the students leave. But the leave part is because they're now going off and living their lives. That's kind of, if you will, the harvest time. So it's and everything happens. Football happens, volleyball happens. I mean, track and field happened. It's just the band's back. I mean, just everything is just energy.
Now, you talked a little bit about football just a moment ago, and this past Saturday, a week ago, the Wildcat team over in Moscow, Idaho, gave the University of Idaho all it could handle in what was a 41-31 loss. But I think that game was probably a little closer than the final score would indicate.
It was, yeah.
I know that you were there for that game. What was your takeaway from that?
It really, we are for 3 quarters, we were the better team. There's no question about it. The issue is that's a D1 team. Until a year and a half ago, it was a bowl championship series team. So it was playing at the highest level of NC2A football. They've got 3 times the scholarships. Their players are bigger. They've got 3 times the number of coaches. So they just wore our players down. I mean, their 3 running backs were as large as our defensive tackles, just to give you a sense. So we stopped them for 3 quarters, but you could just see on kind of just the posture of our players that they were just exhausted in that 4th quarter, and that's what happened. They just ran the ball. We couldn't stop them. But if you look at takeaways, you look at 4th and short stops, we were the better team for 3 quarters, and that's really a tribute to the grit that our students have. To the intelligence of our coaches and the ability to prepare, a smaller team with fewer scholarship athletes to go against the top competition in the country. So good for them.
Now, this Saturday, the Wildcats are going to be home for a game that's actually going to be broadcast on national TV on ESPN3.
Correct.
When Central takes on number 2 ranked Ferris State. It is going to be a big home game for the Wildcats with a 4:05 kickoff. What's it mean for the university to get that kind of national television exposure?
Oh, it's fantastic. And I'll start first with the students. When I got here, I've been here about 10 and a half years now, and the first thing I asked for the first home football game was, what's the difference between a D2 team and a D1 team? And our athletic director in those days was a gentleman by the name of Jack Bishop. And Jack said about 4 inches and 40 pounds. I mean, they're just as talented an athlete. They're just not quite as large as the D1 player. So now we're playing against our own, and those students work as hard as the D1 players. They're as talented, if you will, other than physically, just the physical size of them, as the D1 player. And to get a chance to play on national television is a thrill for those students. They've earned it, and it's not as common as if you're playing for the University of Washington. That's an every weekend opportunity for them. This comes, once a season at best, maybe twice a season if we're having a good one. So I just feel great for the kids, and it gives our alumni a chance to see a game if they can't get over to Tomlinson Stadium to see it. So it really kind of brings the whole Wildcat Nation into focus on that Saturday afternoon, early evening. So that's really what it means. It's an unbelievable opportunity.
Now, the game, of course, as we mentioned, is going to be played at Tomlinson Stadium. Tomlinson Stadium, frankly, has never looked better. And a big part of that is the improvements that have been made there over the past year, including the Alumni Plaza. I know, Dr. Gaudino, you've had the opportunity to watch portions of a game from there.
I do.
What's that experience like? What does that add?
It's unbelievable, Rob. And I really want to thank the viewers, because the backstory, before I tell you about the experience, the backstory is really the folks that are watching this that made that thing happen. We did not design, and I'll put that on Dennis Francois and myself, we did not design that plaza into the original plan. And we had already let the contracts for the construction and so forth out. I mean, we were ready to go, and the Alumni Association came to us and said, hey, here's an idea. What if we built a plaza on the north end of the field? That was the Alumni Plaza. We've always had the alumni tent on the south side. It's lowered. It's elevation-wise lower. You couldn't see the field from down there, so it was mostly a halftime experience. What if we elevated that and we put it on the north end of the field so that the alumni can watch the game from their plaza? And what if we held graduation from that? So the students will graduate on that plaza, which they did this past year, and then they come back as alumni and watch the games from up there. So and I'm going to ask Rick to say how that happened, because Scott Wade, and I do want to take a moment to recognize the contributions of Scott Wade, who we lost this summer. And Bob Ford came to this planning team and said, hey, here's a late arriving idea from the Alumni Association. It's not part of the plan. We said, well, how much could it possibly cost to put some dirt there and a cement slab? Well, the number was pretty big. So, Rick, do you want to talk a little bit about what we did?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me. Again, the backstory is Dr. Gaudino was referring to. The Alumni Association itself is looking for a home or something on campus, and this became an idea of a gathering point on campus for the alumni, and then everything else that went along with it as the idea matured over time and becoming the walking across at graduation, as well as being the place for the game. The Alumni Association itself had some extra funds. They committed $250,000 to the project, and as a matter of fact, a retired or an emeritus member of the Alumni Association, Doug Andrews, and his wife, also an alum, were in a position and thought it was a great idea, and they too put some money toward the project. It came together, and what you see is an experience, or what you see, it's awesome, not only visually but being up there and watching the game. We have people that have come from the President's Box and enjoy the game from up there will now go down to the Alumni Plaza itself. It's a gathering point. It's exactly what we thought it would be intentionally. It draws a great crowd, and the experience for everyone that I've talked to has been outstanding.
Oh, it's outstanding. I watch from three vantage points, as you know, Rob. I like to walk the sidelines to see, mostly you actually don't see the game as well from the sidelines because there's so many big bodies, walking in front of you and so forth. I also look at the box that Rick mentioned that, we entertain our VIPs. It's getting thinner and thinner up there because we're heading to the Alumni Plaza.
Absolutely.
It really is, and which is fine. I mean, that's great. And then I watch from the Alumni Plaza. And I actually would say I think the Alumni Plaza is one of the best viewing areas in our entire venue. If you're a football fan, an intense fan, if you look from the end zones, that's usually where the video camera is, as you know. I mean, you've been the voice of the Wildcats for a number of years. You've sat in the press box, you're on the side, but the end zone, you see the holes open up, you see the defense move around, you see the pass patterns developing. It's a fantastic place to watch the game. But I think the coolest part is you're watching it with your friends and your family and friends. We're putting a couple hundred people in that every game, and they're all wearing the Wildcat regalia. There's nice seating there. If it's a little bit cold, there's those heaters, that you see in kind of the nicer restaurants in the decks and so forth. There's a buffet there, and then there's a beverage table there. So it's a party atmosphere, if you will, with people swapping stories. They're seeing each other. They haven't seen each other for a few years. It's just an absolute great mixing bowl, and you get to see the whole Tomlinson event. We set. This is not known by a lot of our folks, but we set records for attendance year after year in the GNAC, and we're up in the top few for Division II. So it's a crowd, and the things we're able to do with the new Tomlinson Stadium, food trucks at the other end, the Wildcat statue, that's at the south end of the field. It's just now it's an event, not just a football game. It's an event, and kind of the heart of the event now is on the plaza.
Of course, this Saturday, as we mentioned, 4:05 kickoff as the Wildcats take on Ferris State here. If you can come out and join us for the game, join us at the Alumni Plaza as well. That'd be great to do.
Please do. Please do.
This program was built to bring questions from you, the donors, alumni, and friends of Central Washington University, to our guests here. And so I want to go ahead and get to our first submitted question. And this one probably I think we could have expected. Every time I come to campus, I see lots of construction projects are underway.
Yeah.
How are all these new facilities improving the campus, Dr. Gaudino?
Yeah, and I'll take, if you're happy about that, I take all the credit. and if you're not happy about that, I take all the blame. No, there's a whole team. We set out actually my predecessor, Dr. Jerry McIntyre, created the vision for the construction that we have implemented. And the first building was the music building, and she was able to complete that one during her tenure, and then I kind of took over essentially her plan. And we've been, with my team, been very successful in getting state funding. How is it? That plan focuses on what we call STEM: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And those are, for the most part, a combination of lecture and laboratories. And they are, the advancements in the lab space in the activity in the STEMs is just phenomenal. It's just accelerating every year. And you have to give the students the ability to have a first-class experience. And some of our older buildings did not give us that experience. They did not have the opportunity, the infrastructure in the building. So we were teaching physics in Lind Hall. I mean, that's one of our oldest buildings on campus, and the infrastructure wasn't there. The ability to move air around is not there, so you had to limit the things that you could do to students. The electrical systems weren't adequate for the laser labs and so forth that have to be in a building of that nature. And then all of our equipment was kind of honestly getting cold and obsolete. So you can fix a building, or you can build a new building, and it's oftentimes less expensive to build a new building. So that's the model that we took, and then retrofitting in a less technologically intense environment the old buildings, and then moving another group into that building. So ROTC, who was in quite honestly a horrible building up in the north of campus, used to be a Motel 6. They're now in Lind Hall. Comm Studies, which was in Bullion, inadequate space for their purposes. They're on the first floor of Lind Hall. Their technological needs aren't as sufficient. Aren't as significant as, and that building is sufficient for them. So to answer your question directly, what's it doing? It's giving our students and our faculty the best learning environment on the West Coast right now, and there's no question about that. The observatory we have is now the best lens on the West Coast. The equipment in our labs the best on the West Coast. So that's why we went about doing all of that construction. One other thing I'll mention, Samuelson, which a lot of our alum will realize is their student union building. That building was mothballed before I arrived here. I don't know exactly how long, probably close to 12 years now. It's been mothballed. We wanted to create a computational science center on our campus. We have what we call ITAM program, Information Technology, Administrative Management, Mathematics, and Computer Science. We're all in disparate buildings, and the cooperation wasn't there, and the technology was wanting in those buildings. So we converted Samuelson with the state funding of about $65 million into a computational science building. It is now, I hope you all can come back and take a tour of campus. I'm happy to give it to you personally. We'll make Rick do it, and if you're really lucky, you'll get Rob to do it. To see some of the facilities that our students are working in. We have a world-class cyber warfare laboratory in the Samuelson building, for example, that industry is coming to campus to use. So that's why we're doing so much building.
You talk about STEM, and one project that is just now getting underway is the university's new health sciences building.
Right.
You talk about those STEM programs. You also talk about bringing programs from different locations around campus together. That health sciences building is going to do that. Talk about the importance of that building and how that fits into the overall campus master plan.
Well, it's been part of that master plan. So it's actually the last building that is on our master plan. We're creating a new master plan now, and I can talk about that if we have time. But it's the health. Some people really want to talk about STEM squared. Science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and medicine. At medicine, it's a more clever way of, don't put the H there because it doesn't spell anything, right? So you put the M there and put a 2 behind it. But health is an incredible issue. I mean, to some extent, it has to do with advances in healthcare and the science of healthcare. In others, it has to do with people like me, and I won't include you two in that. People like me who are in the baby boom generation. And that baby boom means there's a lot of us. That's the boom, and we're all getting to an age where the healthcare needs are outstripping the ability of our healthcare system to address us. But mental health care, physical, bodily health care, diet, nutrition, you name it, we have a shortage. And we particularly have a shortage in the eastern counties, central and eastern counties of the state of Washington. Of course, we've got the UW, doing their thing. We've got the Wazoo doing Washington State University doing their thing in Spokane. But the center of the state is largely unserved. And that's what this building is designed to do, is to serve that center of the state. Now, it's not a med school, so we will not be producing doctors, but we will be producing practitioners that will work in those healthcare facilities.
Now, Rick, I want to turn to you for a minute. Rick Paradis, the Associate Vice President for University Advancements here. I know that many of those who are watching today may be thinking to themselves, what can we do as alumni of the university? How can we support academic programs, growth in academic programs like STEM, like Dr. Gaudino has been talking about? What can we do to get involved in that process and making Central even stronger in that regard?
No, absolutely. That's a great question. If we go to the Science 2, which is now Discovery Hall here on campus, and look at some of the equipment in some of these rooms, the state does a great job with funding some of the buildings, the equipment, and something, especially if you want something specialized, that's additional funding that's required for some of that stuff. We were very fortunate. We were recipients of a major Murdoch grant for for the a very sophisticated microscope in that building and some other material equipment in there. So that's one way. There's certainly that, and you mentioned the health science building. We're just now putting our plan together as far as the wish list and what the campus would like to see in some of these rooms, laboratories, as the president points out. That's certainly one way. I mean, there's always going to be scholarships for the students, whether to get them here. The demographic that this institution serves really requires scholarship money. That will probably always be a number one priority here, as well as keeping them here. Well, I think we're going to talk a little bit about retention as we move forward in this conversation, but certainly those are two areas that we could really use help.
Well, again, you're right. We're going to talk more about a couple different areas because this program today, our University Advancement Virtual Town Hall, is built around questions that have been submitted by you, our donors and friends and alumni of the university. And I've got another one that I want to pose to you, Dr. Gaudino. On this one, too, I think we probably could have foreseen coming. Central has seen lots of enrollment growth in recent years, especially among freshmen. But what is the university doing to keep students in school and helping them to complete their degrees?
Well, we could do a 4-hour program on that because we're doing a lot, and that is a very perceptive and very important question. Because getting to school is the first step, but getting out of school is the much more important step, right? With the degree that is going to prepare you for that enriched and productive and responsible life that Central is so good at preparing students for, as witnessed by our outstanding alumni base. So we have, and I will also say something else before I giving the answer. The student that is coming, the traditional student that has always gone to college is still going to college, yep. And that's the student that has a background that has led them to a pathway that almost assures their passage through college. Increasingly, students that don't have that background, that preparation, are coming to college. They have to come to college because the workforce needs have changed so dramatically. The blue-collar job, the traditional blue-collar job that we have talked about, which is more in the manufacturing sector or more a labor-focused job, or an agricultural job, those are diminishing in numbers and are being replaced by what we have traditionally called a white-collar job, a job that requires advanced training, if not a college education. So, and Washington is leading the nation in that trend of the transference from muscle power to brain power, it's sometimes said. So those people who used to have an opportunity to go into a different trade, if you will, those opportunities are lessening dramatically. So they're starting to see themselves in another pathway of life, and they're coming to school. So we talk on campus about high expectations, high effort, and high support. So we need to demand of the student a high level of productivity. I mean, there's no lowering of standards. We have, in fact, if anything, you lift the standards because people drive towards a challenge. They get lazy and bored if it's too easy. So I'm the exception, by the way. I love easy, but so you got to keep raising the bar every time they meet the bar. You just it's like a high jump or a pole vault. You just put it up a couple of inches. Demand from them the highest effort that they can give, and sometimes it's higher than they know that they can give because they've not been pushed hard. And we have the students to do that, that respond to that. One of the almost cliches around Central Washington University, it was given to us by James Mattis, Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis, when he was speaking. He says Central students have grit and moxie. Yes. Unlike any student, he's had the opportunity to speak at a lot of universities. He says of course, he's a graduate, so he says, I'm biased, but he says there's something in the air here that is different than any place else that he's ever been. They'll rise to those expectations and they'll put the work in. What we need to do, because some of them don't have the preparation, is to give them the high level of support. Yeah. So what does that mean? Gosh, it means tutoring sessions. It means new ways of engaging the student to get their, the student of today, we were just talking about this yesterday in a meeting. The young person of today doesn't have the same sense of place that people of our age group did. So when I moved from high school to college, I went away to college, as most of us did. I left my hometown. I mean, not literally behind, but my head was on a swivel, looking where my new friends were going to be, and where my girlfriend was going to come from, et cetera, et cetera. So my place was around me. Increasingly, students today stay connected to their old place because they've got the internet, they've got the social media environment, they've got the ubiquitous telephone that they can call home at all the time. So we want to engage them. We want to, they're going to do that, and that's important for them to keep those old connections. But we've got to engage them in the campus. Increasingly, our students are working, so their time is precious. So we've got to find ways of engaging them that allows them to have that high effort in class, but also probably work 20, 30, 40 hours a week. That's where our alumni can come. Scholarships alleviate some of that demand. They'll still work, but not maybe 40, 50 hours a week. So we're doing those things. We are developing systems of proactive advising. We're using, this is going to sound almost arrogant to say, but we're using the same big data techniques that a Google or as Amazon would use, obviously on a much smaller scale, to try and identify a student who's getting off the pathway that might be showing some signs of failure, if you will, or future failure. And then we're trying to marshal the forces in a timely fashion to intervene and try to alleviate the causes of those issues that are causing the student to head in the wrong direction. And that means, revamping our data systems, revamping our advising systems. And then a big issue for us is mental health. You put all those factors together, and students, we all felt stressed when we were going to school. I certainly did. Before the exams, particularly an exam I might not have studied enough from, or the paper I wasn't completely proud of, the anxiety goes up. Add to that financial instability, maybe even food insecurity, a lingering feeling of homesickness because you're still connected to home in ways that we had kind of separated at some point a little bit emotionally from, and the stress levels are getting, for some students, close to the breaking point. So we've got to have all of our wellness activities going on. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It's a big effort. It's a big effort.
And I want you to elaborate, if you will, on one of the points you just touched on a little bit. With all the changing demographics and psychographics, I guess,
Right.
of today's students,
Right.
have scholarships, which have always been important, certainly, have they taken on a new level of significance?
They have, Rob. They've always been important. I had a scholarship when I went to college. That helped me because I came from a blue collar family that didn't have the means. In my case, I was born with an overgrown, outsized body and self-confidence. So I played football. I got my scholarship that way. But incredibly so. The level of, when this new group of students are coming, and they're coming, that's where most of our growth is coming from. And I would say that's true for really everybody except for the University of Washington, which keeps their student profile pretty constant because they're so selective. Everybody else is seeing more and more students with higher and higher levels of financial need. And that's forcing that student into the stress levels, but also into the ability to work. It was the case that, and a lot of folks that are listening to this will remember this. You could get a job in the summer, and that got you through college, and that was a tough job. You were picking fruit, or you were working on a construction, or you were working retail in the Seattle area. But you can make enough money to piece together with maybe waiting tables here in Ellensburg that you could get through college. College at Central, not tuition, but the full cost of attendance is between $18,000 and $21,000. You can't make that kind of money in a summer. I mean, if you can, don't go to school, right? I mean, that's for 2.5 months to make that kind of money, it's not doable any longer. So, because you're out there making, $12 to $15 an hour at those jobs. So yeah, scholarships are becoming increasingly important, and the demands on the student. There's an old cliche that history is a lot harder now because there's more of it. But STEM is a lot harder now because the level of sophistication of the technology and the actual science is also much harder, more conceptual. So the issues of nanotechnology, things that you can't see without the microscope that Rick was talking about, it puts a lot of demands on students to spend time in the classroom. So yeah, scholarships are absolutely critical.
And one thing that I have been always very impressed with university advancement is the opportunity that alumni, friends, and donors of the university have to fund scholarships on a wide range of topics or interests or along those lines. Talk a little bit about some of those opportunities.
Absolutely. And again, the opportunity to give a scholarship on campus. We've just recently bought some new software, Scholarship Central now. I think we had doubled the number of applicants for scholarships this year. This past year, you can go in and see where the scholarships are, whether they're in English, whether they're in physics, whether they're in geology, whether they're in music. There's a variety that we have a history here at Central of our donors supporting scholarships, which is awesome. The one thing that we do today, we've taken a real look at some of the criteria on our scholarships, and some of them were very defined, if you will, to the point of some that were established years ago with programs that may not even exist today, or the world has changed a bit. So just making them, keeping them broad enough so that there are students that they can serve, critically important. We have the ability to do current use scholarships, is what we call scholarship money that comes in today, that goes out today to a student. Endowed scholarships, which are here for in perpetuity. Those spin off, based on what the foundation's spending rates are, but they spin off money annually. So there's a number of different ways to get involved in giving scholarships. We've just, in the last 2 years, we've had we've instituted the scholarship reception. Right. It's a dinner now where our donors come and get to meet their scholarship awardees, and we spend a lot of time making sure that the awardees and the actual scholarship donors can do that. Some of the scholarships that have been around for a while, representatives from those estates or whatever, from those families come and meet, and it's really become a great event. I know the president's there. You speak to that group. They're very passionate, and you get a group of people together in a room like that. It's really magical. That's where the magic really can happen. So there again, many ways to get involved with that, and it's again back to the point. It's one of the top priorities for fundraising for this institution.
Rob, can I add something to that? Because I have. My wife and I, Katie and I, are fortunate enough to have a scholarship. We give to the scholarship funds, and I first thought I had given to previous universities, but in very small amounts. I didn't have the ability to do more. I have a little bit more capacity now. It's fun. It's fun to give. I thought when I wrote that endowment check, it'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go have to sell a car, or or scratch the kids out of the will. You don't have to do. You shouldn't do that. I mean, please don't do that. But if you have the capability of giving, there's so much joy. And then when you come back and meet the student that is receiving your scholarship, I'll give a quick example of one that Katie and I were able to help, a young woman, pianist in our music program. And we thought we were giving her because of her scholarship because of the talent. We weren't aware of her dire financial situation. She was we were recruiting the student to the university. And at graduation, we got to meet her and her family, and they thanked us for the help. And she was going off to the Berklee School of Music in Boston to, and that's, for those who don't know, that's Berklee and Juilliard kind of vie for the best talent in the United States, if not the world. And so that, we saw the sparkle in this young woman's eye. She's probably going to be a concert pianist someday, and otherwise she would have not been able to do that. And that makes, it makes it all worthwhile. I mean, you just go home and you just feel good. Kate, my wife, cried, but I think it was tears of joy, but I was just, beaming with pride, almost like she was my daughter, going off and having this great success. So you get a lot of pleasure, and you get it really for the rest of your life. It's really cool. There'll be another one next year.
This virtual town hall is meant as a way to provide a forum for you, our donors and alumni and friends of the university, to ask questions to both Dr. Gaudino and Rick Paradis. And I've got a couple more questions I want to get to
before you go there.
Sure.
I want to say one thing about the success, and Rick is a big part of that success, as are our development officers in the college. But I do want to give a little tribute to Scott Wade, the vice president of our development. Scott was with us about 7 years. We started. He's each year. Well, the first couple of years was he kind of laying the foundation, doing a good job, but laying the foundation so the money wasn't just ramping up the way a president wants to see the line graph go up. But in the last 4 years, it's been doubling and then doubling and then doubling and then doubling. So it's just an incredible, the response. And that's a credit to Scott and his team, but it's also a credit to our viewers, because that's where that money has come from. It's come from the people that are watching this show. So it is working. I mean, it really is working. And of course, for those who don't know, we lost Scott to an accident this summer while he was on vacation, and not a timely death by any stretch. He's a young man, and it's going to be an incredible loss, and nearly impossible to fill his shoes, because he was such a big personality. But the foundation is in very good shape. The good work and the very generous support of our alumni. So the number of donors and the size of the contributions has been increasing every year, and we see that continuing, ideally forever and ever.
Our next question I want to pose this to you, Dr. Gaudino. I know this is a subject that's near and dear to your heart as well. I've read where Central has won a Higher Education Excellence and Diversity Award several times. What is the award? What is important to Central about it, and how did we receive it?
Well, not to brag, but we've won that award 4 out of the last 5 years. We've only been eligible for 5 years, so I think we've done pretty well. And the 1 year that we did an award, we forgot to submit we forgot to follow up on the application for it. So yeah, and it's we won't know for a while yet whether it's going to be 5 out of 6 years, but I'm completely confident that we will be that. We're the only school, in the state of Washington that has that record of achievement. So we're very, very proud of our efforts. What is that award? Well, there's an organization. It's a publication. It's the most prestigious award in the subject matter for higher education. There's an organization called Insights into Diversity, and it looks at, and diversity is a very broad term. College brings together people from all walks of life, from all races, from all ethnicities, you name it. There's no tutor that are the same at a college. And what this award does is to say, is the college sensitive to that? And are they making sure that the opportunities, we call it inclusivity, are we making sure that the university is open, sufficiently open, so that everybody can participate in the learning experience, regardless of their background? And Central is making that's a concern. That's one of our values. We call it our inclusivity value, that it doesn't matter where you're from, if you're rich, if you're poor, east side, west side, minority, majority, it doesn't matter. You come to Central and you're going to have an opportunity to succeed. And this award is basically one measure that we have that we're are we there? Are we perfect? No. But are we working to become better each year? Yeah, and that's what this award tells us.
I think it's a credit to you as well that we actually have a vice president on staff who oversees these kind of programs.
We do. We were the first in the state to do this. They all have it now. You know, when one university is winning award year after year, that they kind of look around and go, oh, that's why. You know, you've got one of those, and so the others have hired those into this position. But yes, her name is Dolores Cleary. She's better known as Candi Cleary. She formerly was it's Dr. Candi Cleary. She formerly was the head of our she's a PhD in sociology, a professor and chair of our sociology department. She's passionate about this subject, and she understands it both, if you will, emotionally, personally, but also intellectually, because this was her area of study. So we convinced her to leave that faculty role and to come into the executive ranks of the university, and she's, if you will, kind of the eyes and ears and the conscience of the university. She sits at my right hand all the time, and she's at all the cabinet meetings, and she goes to all of the meetings. And if there's I hope always unintentional, but if somebody proposes something that might make us less inclusive, block some people out, then Candi raises her hand and says, well, what's going to be the effect of that here? Doesn't say, no, you can't do it, because maybe we have to do it, but what's going to be the impact of that? And that she's doing just a fantastic job, and this award largely is evidence of that effort.
Now, Dr. Gaudino, I've actually had a question that was posed for Rick, as a matter of fact, and I got to...
He gets to talk?
Yeah. This one's near and dear to my heart because I have an opportunity to work on this. But the question is, I love the first issue of the new Crimson and Black University magazine.
You betcha.
When will the next one be coming out, and what will be in it?
So I'm glad everybody liked the first Crimson and Black. For those of you that might not know that, so the rebranding of the Connections magazine, it's the next issue is due out in the mail September 16th. And it's going to include our centers and feature stories about our centers and instructional sites around the state. I think Dr. Gaudino mentioned earlier some of the demographics and the need for additional education for folks that even are out in the workforce. These centers provide that opportunity for people, particularly on the west side, going back. So it's a very timely, I think, the whole issue and its focus on our centers and our instructional sites.
And if you don't have the opportunity or you don't receive Crimson and Black, how do you receive one?
So right now the Crimson and Black goes out to the folks that we have valid addresses for, with our donors and our Alumni Association members, faculty and staff. If you would like one, feel free to get a hold of our office, either through email or call the office. The information can be found on our website, and request that, or better yet, become a donor, and then you'll be sure of getting the Crimson and Black.
Is there an opportunity for someone to go online and update their contact information? Any alumni?
Yes.
Any alumnus to do that?
Yeah, you can go, right, and you have the ability to go online and update your information, and there is a comment box, so you'd be able to request a copy of the Crimson and Black if that's what you would like. Absolutely.
And after the new publication comes out, it will be available online at cwucrimsonandblack.com. So you'll be able to see it there online as well. And tell your friends about it as well, because it really is a quite stunning publication.
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, these 45 minutes have gone much, much too fast. We hope this is going to be the first in a series of virtual town hall events. But before we go, I want to give you both an opportunity because, again, we've covered a lot, but are there some things we haven't talked about? Dr. Gaudino, do you have anything you'd like to leave us with?
Are you kidding? Yeah, I got lots. Let's stay on the sports theme just for 1 second. Our football team, we've talked about,
yep.
But our volleyball team is nationally ranked. Last time I saw, they were ranked 24th in the nation, which is fantastic. They've been down in California playing in tournament play, which getting ready for the season. They knocked off the 18th ranked team down there. So I think you're going to see a lot from our volleyball team, and our soccer team, not nationally ranked, but have been performing very well in tournament play as well. So if you've got a chance, we stream some of those games on our site. You can go to the athletic department and see some of those. If not visually, you can listen to them, but oftentimes they're televised, if you will, and streamed. I also want to just give a plug, and much of this is on our website. But when I arrived here, Central prided itself with being the best kept secret in the nation. Well, we would say the best kept secret in the Northwest, but really we became a best kept secret in the nation as a result. And I thought that wasn't really a point of pride. I mean, it was a fact, and we were really, really good, but I wanted folks to know about it. And so we have I've been more responsive to the opportunities to toot our horn. And since doing that, and I don't take credit for the achievement, just I think it's been a long history of excellence at Central Washington University, but we are now generally being recognized across the country as one of the best undergraduate experiences in the United States. Economist magazine, Forbes magazine, U.S. News and World Report, kind of the traditional ranking, career-connected learning, the ability of preparing students for the job place. Central is always coming out at the very top, frequently, almost always the best in the state of Washington, but usually in the top 100, 200 in the United States. So a lot of that has to do with, again, the folks that are watching, because a component of those ratings are how connected the alumni are to the university and, candidly, how well the alumni are doing in their lives. Goes back to that grit and that moxie. That's something special about Central. It's the people that are going out living their lives, whether it's in teaching or finance or construction management or the variety of careers that our alumni are working in. They're outstanding, and that factors in. It becomes a measure of the quality of the instruction program at Central. So increasingly, the number of awards that we are winning it gets every year. We add 2 or 3 to it. That's outstanding.
It is outstanding, and I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of outstanding alumni and donors and friends of the university. I know, Rick, that you are as well. What do you want to say to them?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you very much for your support. And as we've been speaking about here, there's a wealth of opportunity on campus to get engaged wherever you may want to be. We have needs. We're doing very well. The state, much like state support around the country, has been pulling back. I mean, for the last year or so, it's been stabilized. But the reality is, to get to where we really want to go, your support is key to making that happen. I think, again, I don't want to rehash everything that we talked about a little bit, but the stadium itself, private support, probably one of the first or maybe only facilities projects funded through private support.
Totally.
Very important to this institution, not only in what it is done for the student experience, but for the fan experience, not only for football, but for soccer, rugby that play in that stadium. Anecdotally, the fans, I don't know if it's a doubling for some of those sports, but there's certainly a lot more fans that it seems than it used to just stand around out on the field. So I think that those kinds of things supported by you, the donors, critically important to moving forward. Just also part of that North Campus development. We didn't talk so much, Dugmore Hall. Yeah, and we're going to have the ribbon cutting.
October 12th.
October 12th over homecoming weekend. You're all invited to that. Professor Dugmore, Owen Dugmore, here for 45 years, faculty member in psychology, left his estate to the university, $1.2 million, which is one of the top gifts ever to this institution, which we're very proud of. Anyway, we welcome you to come and join that ceremony. Be on campus. That's a big feature weekend here on campus. Last year there were probably 6,500 people in the stadium.
Oh, easily.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, again, thank you very much for your support. We're happy to continue. If you have any questions about where to support, how to support, feel free to give me or the office a call.
Well, gentlemen, that's going to do it for our first virtual town hall. Dr. Gaudino, thank you for
sir.
joining us.
you.
Rick Paradis, thank you for
Thank you.
joining us as well. There's some other thank yous I'm going to make very quickly. I want to thank the fine crew here. Rick Spencer, Chris Smart. Without them, we would not be able to be on today. Also to John Belford and our web services team. Also to our friends at Academic Technology and Media Services. Thank you for all of your help. Now, there's going to be a link shared later today, social media and email, that will allow you to watch this virtual town hall once again. I'd be very happy if you would share that with other folks who weren't able to join us today so they too can get informed about some of the things happening now and in the very near future here at Central Washington University. So, well, until we talk again, thank you. Have a great day.
you.
And on behalf of Rick Paradis and Dr. James Gaudino, I'm Robert Lowry saying
Thank you, Rob.
thank
you, Rob.
Go Wildcats.
Go Cats.